This is Reuters Today. Coming up, more trouble for HSBC as it's hit by a multi-billion-dollar fine. And thousands flee out-of-control wildfires in Australia. But first, after a week fraught with tension, there may be reasons to end it with some cheer. China's economy expanded at its fastest pace so far this year. It puts to rest, at least for now, fears that the world's number 2 economy is heading for a slowdown. GDP grew 7.8% compared with a year earlier. However, economists warn that government efforts to engineer a more sustainable economy may weigh over the coming quarters. And as Washington returns to work, expectations are growing that the cost of the 16-day shutdown will delay the Fed's timetable to start cutting back on stimulus. All of that helping Asian stocks move to 5-month highs. Still, all of that fiscal wrangling has kept the dollar pinned to near 8-month lows. Joining me now, Daragh, Maher, FX strategist and director at HSBC. Thanks for joining us. So, looking at the dollar, it's feeling a bit of pain over this political shenanigans. Where do you see it going between now and the end of the year?
Yeah, I think, look, very short term, that what the market's doing is kind of counting the cost of, as you say, this political standoff that we've had. And so economists are revising down GDP. And against that kind of backdrop, it's going to be very hard for the dollar to make any kind of gains. The question is that thereafter, I think there is scope for some revival in the dollar, in part because of what's happening elsewhere, and perhaps we can talk about that later. But even from the US perspective, if you begin to get just some better numbers and you get through this distortion that we've had, then people might say, well, hold on, tapering's back on at some point, tapering's back on the agenda, and ultimately that will be a dollar positive.
Well, we've got a slew of data coming next week. A lot of it's been postponed, especially payrolls, which are coming on Tuesday. What kind of effect do you think that's likely to have in the short term? And also, what's that going to have effect on tapering as well? Well,
look, these are vital elements because the Fed has made it clear everything is data contingent. Of course, we've had this vacuum for 16 days of no numbers. From the government at least. So yeah, it'll be very important. The problem, of course, is even if we get a very soft number, we'll say, oh, well, hold on, was that because of the shutdown? Has it been a distorted number, etc.? So perhaps there's a slightly greater significance if we get a good number. If we get a good number despite everything we've had, then it might just make the market wobble a little bit about this dollar sell-off that we've seen and kind of think, oh, hold on, maybe we should be buying a little bit back. So yeah, absolutely vital, particularly that payrolls number on Tuesday.
And how much of a concern is it as well if politicians can't broker a deal with the next couple of deadlines, January, February?
Yeah, I think from the market's perspective, we're having this cry wolf scenario, aren't we, where we feel we've been terrified about it at each instance, and each instance they seem to, at the last minute, come up with another solution. And kicking the can down the road isn't, of course, an ideal solution, but it is a solution. And I suspect we'll be at this point again in early January and ahead of the December deadline, where we're perhaps hopeful of a resolution, but not really expecting one. So again, I think the market should, I won't say relaxed, but I think we'll be pragmatic about how this plays out.
And just moving to the UK and to look at sterling, it seems to have had a pretty good summer, but do you think that this run is beginning to run out of steam?
Sterling's done very well. I mean, Sterling's done well because the UK has been doing better than expected. I won't say it's doing well, it's doing better than expected. But also because, frankly, it seemed the best of a bad lot. You know, it's actually enjoyed support. It's behaved a bit like a safe haven, which in many respects is a worry. If that's the best we've got, then we really are in trouble. I think it's vulnerable because we've built in a lot of rate hikes into the UK expectations. And to feed that, support that, you need to continually get reasonable data. And occasionally we get these downside surprises, retail sales, manufacturing production, and sterling comes off very sharply whenever we've had that. I think that's still the vulnerability into year end.
Of course, be keeping a good look at sterling and all these other currencies. Thank you very much for joining us. Other business news. Google shares surging 8% to a record high in after-hours trade. The search engine beating expectations in the third quarter by expanding its mobile and overseas businesses while keeping ad rate declines in check. More trouble for HSBC. The British bank's been fined almost $2.5 billion by a US judge. It comes in the wake of a class action lawsuit against an HSBC unit, formerly known as Household International. The suit claimed Household artificially boosted its share price by engaging in predatory lending and hid the quality of its loan portfolio. And Lenovo may face regulatory hurdles if it bids for all of BlackBerry, according to Reuters sources. They say the Chinese computer maker, which is looking at BlackBerry's books, is therefore more likely to pursue individual parts of the group. But BlackBerry's most vital asset, its secure network, is likely to remain in North American hands because of security concerns. The latest world news headlines. The global chemical weapons watchdog is confident it'll be able to meet the deadline for destroying Syria's toxic stockpile. A spokesman for the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons says inspectors have visited nearly half of more than 20 sites declared by Damascus. Wildfires have claimed one life and destroyed at least 100 homes near Sydney in Australia. Thousands of people have been forced to flee as many of the fires burn out of control. Residents say they've witnessed clouds of ash and burnt leaves drifting over the city onto landmarks such as Bondi Beach. That's it for now. I'll leave you with our pick of the day. A child poses for a photo under a new art piece by British graffiti artist Banksy in New York. Banksy's caused controversy on his trip, with Mayor Michael Bloomberg saying the graffiti ruins property. I'm Joanna Partridge. This is Reuters.